Hey, what up? It's Tampa Brad, back at you with law number 35 of the 48 laws of power. I guess that works, 4 and 8. Law number 35 is master the art of timing. So what does that mean, timing? When we talk about timing, there's a couple different ways to look at it. So the first is take your time. Okay, I see so many people screwing this up. So many people are just always in a hurry and they're always in a rush. It's probably due to the fact that we kind of just always feel rushed in day-to-day life. It feels like, you know, there's so much going on around us with social media. We get a lot of FOMO. We feel like we have to go super, super, super fast and get a lot of things done and just touch a lot of people. But in reality, if you don't take a second to slow down and take a breath every now and then, you can't ever really go deep on any subject. And if you study anyone who's been successful or been in a position of power in history, they've gotten to the place that they were or were successful in the place that they were because they took their time and they knew how to time things properly and they wouldn't allow themselves to be rushed. So that's one huge aspect of this is mastering the art of timing means mastering boundaries in a way. That's the way that I see it, is if you set proper boundaries for yourself, you will never have your time controlled by someone else. So that's number one. Number two is realize what's taking up your time. So are you spending your time on things that you proactively decide, hey, I want to spend my time here? Or are you being dragged around by people outside of you? There's some people in my business, for example, who struggle with feeling like if somebody else asks something of them, a use of their time, they feel like they have to jump on it and do it right away. And that's a very common business mindset, is if the customer asks you for something, asks you for your time or something like that, you immediately give it to them, right? No, wrong. If you look at the best business people, the customer would ask for their time, and if they're told no, they're like, I completely understand. When it's convenient for you, please get back to me. Even if it's a burning hot fire issue, they understand if, and this is a big if you have the proper boundaries set up for yourself, the customer or person that's asking for your time will understand that you can't get back to them because you're setting yourself up, I don't want to say on a pedestal, but you're setting yourself up as a higher value person. That's by respecting your own time. So in the chapter, Robert Greene talks about a couple different ways. This is like a 30-minute chapter in the audiobook, which means it's a long one. Like there's a lot of meat to this chapter. And it's because there's a lot of different ways to attack this. I just hit 2 for you. But one thing that Robert Greene really hammers on is a couple people from history who knew how to use timing and knew how to use time to their advantage, and really, they could really capitalize on it and do some cool stuff. So the first one is Houdini. So something that Houdini was super famous for and just like world renowned is he would book an hour show, and all he would do in that hour show is fill a tank up with water and break out of handcuffs. Now, in reality, if a magician knows how he's gonna break out of handcuffs, right? Or he'd be like in a straight jacket with handcuffs and a chastity belt or something like that. You know, he'd just layer it on. He knows how he's gonna get out of it and probably can get out of it in 2 to 3 minutes, right? Not really that much of a spectacle. But what Houdini would do is he would draw that 3-minute escape out to 45 minutes or an hour. And the suspense is what kept people interested. And what he would do is at the end of it, he would bring it to a close, bam, with finality. He would do it in a way that was extremely expeditious. He would take a long time getting to where he was going, but then when he, you know, it's as if you're walking to someone's house. It's like you can take as long as you want and look like whatever you want on your way there. But when you walk in that door, do it with an air of authority, do it officiously, and that's gonna have an impact. So Houdini understood that very well. That's timing. He understood that the timing of how he pulled off his escapes would create the magic around his, you can think of it as his brand, the Houdini brand. And that's what made him famous. That's what made him the best magician of all time, is his use of timing. And so another phenomenal example that I can think of timing is one that not a lot of people know, but it's Carl Icahn. So in case you don't know, Carl Icahn is, he's called, in the 90s, he's what was called a corporate raider. And what corporate raiders would do is they would come into a company and they would start buying up stock. They would represent a bunch of people with money, and they would come in and start buying up shares of the company. And eventually they'd own so much of the company that they had a majority vote, or they at least had a bigger vote than anyone else in the boardroom. So they could force the company to do things that it wouldn't necessarily want to do, but they want to do in order to rocket up the share price so that they could sell the shares that they had accumulated and get out of it. So Carl Icahn is one of the best corporate raiders. And so what he had to be really good at in order to do his, corporate raider thing is he had to be great at negotiation and great at coming to a table with other investors or competitors or whoever and striking a deal that was massively beneficial to him, but that everyone would still agree to, right? They got to say yes. So what Carl Icahn would do is, let's say he had an 8 p.m. meeting for a negotiation of a deal. He would alter his sleep cycle so that he woke up around 5 or 6 p.m. of that day. And the reason he did that is because your brain is at its peak of creativity, effectiveness, peak, I believe it's alpha wave activity, whatever the awake wave is. I don't know brain psychology that much, but this has been mapped by brain, basically the people that study brains, I don't even know what they're called, but they've mapped the brain waves and shown that 2 hours after you wake up from a deep sleep, a REM cycle, is your peak brain activity. So Carl Icahn knew that, and he would intentionally alter his sleep cycle so that he came into a meeting at the end of the day when everyone else has worked a full day and it's just the tail end of the meeting. He's fresh, it's the first thing on his plate, and he has full mental capacity in order to get the best deal. So that's why Carl Icahn was so famously successful, is he would go into a boardroom meeting and he'd get this crazy deal that nobody thought was even possible because he had mastered the art of timing. Okay, so timing, when you think about that, you can think about Carl Icahn, you can think about Houdini. One other person who was great at putting time limits, we've talked a little bit about how to set up time properly. Stop time is one thing that the author talks about. He calls it stop time, and that means creating an artificial limit on the amount of time that you have, and this is a phenomenal sales tactic. So in the event that you're trying to sell someone something, and you really just need to have them make a decision, right? There's no real reason, like if you were to evaluate it objectively, there's no real reason for them to make a decision. They should take as long as they need, if you're in their interest. But if you're the salesperson, look, you've got to get people, frankly, in layman's terms, to shit or get off the pot, as we say. And so in order to do that, a lot of what salespeople will do is they'll create a false time constraint. And so what they'll say is, like, let's say, for example, an art dealer, Joseph Devine, he's mentioned a lot in the book. Let's say he's getting someone like one of the Rockefellers to buy a painting. He'll say that the painting is going to leave the country at this date, which, whether it is or is not necessarily relevant. But in the investor's mind, it creates a timeline and it creates a backup. It creates what Robert Greene calls stop time, at which point the investor loses. It creates the idea of potential loss. And so it spurs that investor to think, okay, and just magically at the last second come through and buy the painting. And Joseph Devine did that to great effect again and again and again. So this art of timing it can be applied in many different ways. And it also, to be frank, it's really not that hard. But what it does require is it requires you being on your own path. If you're walking a path that someone else has told you to walk, and you are at their beck and call, you're at their whim, maybe you're working in a job that doesn't fulfill you, maybe you're doing something in your life, you're living your life in a way to please someone that, maybe your parents or whatever. It's not about you, it's about someone else. If you are doing that, you are inherently, just in the way your life is structured, you are living in reaction. And mastering the art of timing requires getting into proactivity. It's a mindset switch of getting from reaction, I'm doing things to combat other things that are happening around me, versus proactivity, which is I'm here and this is my path and this is where I'm going. And it's not about, I'm gonna go through anybody who's in my way. It's not about that. It's just about this is the path I'm gonna go. I might have to make some twists and turns, but that's where I'm going. So whether you like it or not, I'm going there. Mastering the art of timing requires you to be proactive. It also requires what we would call meta-awareness. It requires you to be aware of what's going on around you and not siloed into a little bubble to where you just don't really know what's going on. So that sounds like it's very easy to do on the surface, right? Like just watch what's going on around you. But that implies that you can't be wrapped up in your thoughts, you can't be wrapped up in your biological drives, and you can't be wrapped up in just other BS that's being thrown at you on social media and everywhere else. You have to take your own proactivity in order to live out this law. So that's my challenge to you. Are you living a reactive life where people are setting time for you? Or are you living a proactive life where you are utilizing time properly and you're using it to your advantage? If you're not doing the second thing, I would just ask you why. I would just ask you why not. I think Gary Vee is very good at getting to the heart of this. He'll often ask people, if they say they're doing a job that they hate, he'll just be like, who are you doing that job for? And they'll be like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And he'll be like, well, hold on.
So in conclusion, just because you have dreams doesn't mean you have to sleep on your dreams out. There are dreams and dreams are reality, and we are living in a constant state of reality, so go out there and chase your dreams, but don't chase them too fast because you might fall, but if you fall, get back up. I haven't slept in 36 hours. Make sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram for more content at Tampa Brad. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.